Good evening, everyone. Hi, I hope you are having an okay evening. Welcome to the first evening of COMP6080. It's one of the few times this year you'll probably be having a 6 o'clock lecture where the sun is still up outside, if you are in Australia, but I'm aware that we have a huge contingent of students who are overseas. So hello to our approximately, I can't remember, I think it's like 130 people we have overseas. I think about a third of this course aren't in the country, so if you are one of those people, I hope you don't feel too lonely. After all, you're one of many, that's for sure. I thought just before we start, I'd give you a really quick overview of who's actually like on this in this course in terms of where they are around the world, because again, I'm aware that with COVID and everything else, there are probably people not in Sydney who are feeling somewhat separated from the rest of things. So to give you a quick breakdown, we'll talk about this later. This is some analytics just off the course site, but here is essentially the breakdown of where people are for us in the world right now. So we've got a whole bunch of people in Australia, obviously. Big hello to everyone who's in China. Handful of people then across India, other parts of Indo-Asia, and the USA as well, and a few people in Southeast Asia just across the board. And apparently, how many people do we have here? We have one person in New Zealand. So if you're from New Zealand, then hello to you too. I'm sure we have little bits and bobs of people all around the world. So just a big hello to whoever's here today. My name is Hayden, if you haven't figured that out already by the fact that I've been emailing you left, right, and center over the last few weeks, and I appreciate for those who are here today live. We have about a quarter of the students in the course live tonight with us, for your patience in getting started. There was just a couple of short issues that we want to resolve and let people trickle in, so thanks for those who are here. NordVPN, yeah. So the point of tonight's meant to be very light in terms of content. So if you've come here tonight a little bit nervous that you're not feeling ready for the term and you're feeling a bit tired and fatigued and you don't want to jump into content yet, it's good news for you, because tonight's meant to be fairly short. It's not going to take the full 2 hours. It's really just meant to be a bit of an introduction. For those of you who are keen to get into some hardcore coding tonight, you'll probably be a little bit disappointed just from the next hour of lecturing, but I'm sure many of you are not absolutely thirsty. And if you are absolutely thirsty for content, like in terms of coding content, the good thing is we have a whole bunch of pre-recorded lectures that we can get to super soon, and you can go straight onto those tonight, tomorrow, whenever you want, and get stuck into it. But we'll get back to that soon. How I like to start this course is generally to talk about why the course exists, why it should matter to you, and really just like why we're all here. The big questions about why, right? So like why does COMP6080 exist? Why should you consider it one of the more exciting courses that you do at university? It's a course that wouldn't have existed 5-10 years ago. It exists now. Different people do it for different reasons. You've seen this in the introduction post. If you haven't already, please go check out the forum and go and introduce yourself. I haven't logged in here, but there's a forum post that I would love for you all to go and say hi in. It's one of the top forum posts right here. Introduce yourself. So please come and introduce yourself, say hi. And you'll see people are from all walks of life doing this course. Some people are current front-end developers looking to learn more skills. Very small number, don't feel out of place. And it's a lot of, besides that, people who are familiar with the area and feel like they finally want an opportunity to get it. I'm sure many of you out there who don't feel like you have the front-end skills, for instance, have friends or colleagues or other people who make you feel like, oh, goddamn, I just am not really good enough for this, you know, like feeling like you're just missing some kind of skill that they have. And we've seen this all the time, you know, and a big part of like why we started this course is the big leveler, I sometimes refer to it as. So the idea is that we want, when you finish this course, you don't feel left out like some of, you know, you say your friends who are self-taught. But in terms of why this content, like why web in general, the main reason is just because it's absolutely exploding. If you look at just from an occupational standpoint, just from the perspective of, you know, what is what is the work out there that a lot of people are doing, the fundamental reality is most of it right now is based on JavaScript. Like if you leave uni right now, the most likely programming language you're going to be working with just on a per job basis is JavaScript. If you go and do contracting work or consulting work right now, the highest chance you probably have of doing some coding is with JavaScript. You know, a few years ago, a quarter of all jobs were JavaScript-based frameworks. You know, so it's a massive, massive area. And the point of what we're trying to do here is say that right now it's the start of the course, and in 10 weeks, we want to make sure that you are all confident in building your own simple web apps, that you can build them quickly and that you can build them how you want them to be. So you can actually say, if I've got time, I'm going to go build something that isn't janky, that isn't awkward or weird, but it's exactly what I want and I can do it and it's not going to take me a year. You know, it depends how big it is, right? But in general, you know, the aim is that you should feel empowered by the end of this course. And something I'll come back to, I'll actually bring this up again when we talk about the course website. Let me just check if I mention it. What I've kind of been saying, I don't think I put this in the slides, is that by the end of this course, like many of you have probably already seen this course website. By the end of this course, we want you to feel like you can build something like this. So this whole website is built pretty much only with the knowledge that we are going to teach throughout this course, 99% of it. And by the end of this course, you should feel like you can go away and do something like this and build something like this. And for perspective, I'd expect that a typical student who finishes this course could probably easily build this entire thing in a week or less, right? That's where we want you to end up. That's what the journey we're going to go on together through this term is. And we want you to have fun throughout the term too, right? Because that's the cool thing about this topic. It's not like data structures and algorithms. It's not like some of these other really scientific courses. It's actually a course where you can sit down and make something and play with it and just have a lot of fun. So if you've kind of come into this course to get really high marks, that's great. I think that's very ambitious of you, but I'd love even more if people have come into this course to say, I want to learn stuff and I want to have fun doing it. Because, you know, realistically, if you can pass this course, you're probably going to know enough to apply these skills. So I just hope that you have fun along the way. There's two big questions we want to answer though, which is what is front-end development? What is a front-end developer? And then why is web exploding? Because we've kind of said, I'm going to help you become a good front-end developer because web is exploding. But what is a front-end developer and why is it exploding? So firstly, on the topic of a front-end developer, broadly, a front-end developer is someone who writes code that's executed client-side, typically part of some kind of end-user-facing product. You probably most often know about this through the idea of like mobile apps. That's an example of a client-side piece of software. And that is that you write code that is actually run on, like in the case of this course, someone's web browser, and in the case of something else, like a mobile app, it's on their phone. It doesn't run on a server. And frankly, a lot of the code that you would probably be exposed to write at uni is kind of designed for servers, realistically. If you've done courses, again, 2521, 1531, 2511 in parts, 3311 networks. Like so many of this stuff is really in a lot of ways about designing servers and not really getting a huge exposure to front end. So front end is just making stuff for people on the client side. The majority of how front end developers code these days is within web browsers or web browser-like systems. So basically, if you have a web browser, there's a good chance that the majority of front end dev work being done is for those web browsers. The majority of work, how these web browsers work is that they essentially run HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? Which are massive languages in themselves, in particular JavaScript, and everything we do in this course is based off that. There's a lot of things you'll see in this course. You'll hear about React.js, you'll hear about Node.js, you'll hear all these different terms, but fundamentally we're writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in some form of abstraction, in some superset language. It's all those core common components. And most excitingly, this course is about writing software for people to use. And that's the fun thing about front end. Right. The fun thing about back-endish stuff like server stuff and algorithms is that you're often writing code to solve big complex problems, typically algorithmically. You're thinking a lot about performance. You're thinking a lot about how to solve a problem. With front end, you're thinking a lot more about how someone going to use it. You know, what's a real person going to do when they hold it in their hand? And that's somewhat more exciting, and particularly for those of you who are interested in that more user experience side, hopefully you'll find this a course where you can stretch your wings a little bit. So that was what a front-end developer is. Let's talk a little bit about how we got here in terms of the exploding web. So this is a little like 5 or 6 part, I guess, short story I put together in terms of what's happened over the last 27, 28 years in terms of web. Because obviously we know that computers came about, you know, 70s, 80s kind of thing, right? That's when they really, that's when they were those big boring machines. You see those old, you know, NASA university pictures with the big machines on the wall. And then when we kind of had this rise of the personal computers in the 80s, after that, networking kind of became a thing in the 90s, right? Because remember, in the 80s, you didn't really have a computer that talked to another computer. It was just like a standalone thing. Then the internet came about. And when the internet came about is when this kind of whole journey of web started. Because remember what web is, and if you had to put up with me for 1531, you might remember this. When we refer to the web or the World Wide Web, that was essentially a part of the internet where the internet's connecting the world together, which was focused on sharing resources essentially via HTTP. And you know HTTP, you see it in your URLs. It's up here, up there. It's mirrored for me, it's very strange. It's up there in the URL up here, right? And it's essentially like the internet, if you think about it, is just a whole bunch of files that were all loading. This is just a file, this is just a file, this is just a file from a server somewhere. And all of those files are written in a language. And that language that started it all off was HTML in the 90s. Sometime around when I was born, apparently. And the idea was that it was just enough to give web pages basic structures. It was able to make headings and links and bold text and maybe put an image in. And it's what allowed you to make those really old style types of websites that are just black and white. They seem like they're the opposite of artistic, and they're just full of information. And that's kind of where the web started. It was just this HTML code. You've probably seen this before, right? Like most of you, even if you've never kind of written HTML, you've seen it before. You've probably seen someone at some point write something that was, you know, this is bold, like that. Most of you would have just seen that and you're kind of like, oh, okay, it's some language with little side brackets. After HTML came about, as we went further into the 90s, we started to see the basics of the second and third part of the web core, which is JavaScript and CSS, come about. JavaScript was a programming language that was used on the web, and it's kind of the only thing that you're used to that is programming-esque. And it's very similar to Python in a way, and it's what allowed us to do more fancy things with websites, like make animations and buttons. And on this website I'm using here, where I'm going through slides, the thing that's actually making my key press change slides is all JavaScript, right? It's what makes web dynamic. Without it, websites are just pages. CSS came along at that same time, you know, the second or the third, and it was really focused on how things look. So when you look at this page and you see, you know, blue and green and all these other colors, that all came from CSS. So CSS is what, sorry about this, what's transformed this like black and white pages into these colorful pages. So by the late 90s, we really had the foundations of what the web is still built on today. HTML helped you build the structure of pages. CSS allowed you to make them colorful and fun and nice looking. And JavaScript allowed you to make them dynamic. And we still rely on those fundamental tenets today. And that's still what this course is based on. That was cool. And many of you are probably in that age bracket where you might remember being very young and having this kind of very boring internet where it's just like a series of static pages. I know some of you are even younger than that and probably don't even remember this, but there was a massive transformational shift between the late 90s and the early 2000s, and a period around 2008 where the internet became a lot more dynamic. And this is actually something we're going to touch on in this course as well. Now, just to be clear, when it says things here like Ajax appeared in 2000, it's important to note that things typically appear long before they're commonly used. So for instance, me as someone who was kind of paying attention at the time, I don't think Ajax became a really like prominent thing until like 2008, 2009. So if you're sitting here, you know, it's 2022, there's probably a few of you that are maybe 20 years old is like a common age we might see in this course, and you were born in 2002 and you were like using the internet when you were 6 or 7. A lot of this stuff, for instance, probably came out when you were, in primary school or something, even though it was invented probably around the time you were born. But anyway, that's all tangential. The point is that up until like the early 2000s and mid 2000s, in the first 10 years, websites were just static. And you've probably seen a bunch of static websites out there, such as, I don't know, what's an old website? Like Wikipedia. Right? Wikipedia is like a static website. And what we mean by that is it's just a series of pages. And you feel like you are just navigating from page to page. And every time you click something, it goes and like loads a whole new page. It's very quick, obviously. Browsers are really good at making things seem like you're not reloading the whole page. But let's go to random article. What do we get today? Boring. Salzmania is a genus of flowering plant belonging to the family. Okay. I'm sure someone understands this. So, these are all just like pages. We're all just navigating between pages. Come mid-2000s, Ajax came along, and Ajax was a simple principle whereby someone figured out, hey, I'm actually going to figure out a way where I have a web page here, and I'm going to have that web page quietly pull information from the internet and update that page without having to reload it. And that was a huge transformational shift in the progress of web in terms of what it could do. And the first kind of instances, I took a screenshot here where this really was impactful was in live chats on social media platforms. So previously, what used to happen for a very long time was that if you were to message someone on, say, Facebook or Instagram, you would send them a message, and if they replied, you would have to refresh the page. You would literally have to keep refreshing it because your page just loaded and it was there. And it could maybe do some dynamic things on the front end, but it never had new information from the server, right? So it like got the page and then it just did some stuff. So you'd have to refresh to get that information. That wasn't particularly good because it was just very, crap. Ajax came in and changed that whole thing. And we're going to be talking about Ajax in this course, and you're going to learn about some of these fundamental technologies that existed, that were created. And that really started to transform the web too, in terms of something more dynamic and lively. Come like the mid-2000s, maybe 10 years ago, what started to happen was that bigger companies who invest a lot of their like spare money and time and employee resources, they started to develop, I think, what is probably two really important technologies that are built on top of JavaScript. And first one was Node.js and the second one was TypeScript. We talk a little bit about Node.js in this course, and we talk not very much about TypeScript. Many of you will come across it somewhere in your life. But just to kind of canvas it, Node.js was when someone figured out how to essentially not just run JavaScript on a web browser on the internet, but how to run it on a server. And again, for the 1531 students there, that's essentially like, because I know about, 2/3 of you did COMP6080 as an undergrad. It's like, that's like running a Python server in Flask, but with JavaScript. And that was pretty transformational because now suddenly people were really incentivized that they could go and build entire full stack systems, just like our course site, which is all JavaScript. And then TypeScript came along and it brought the standard of JavaScript up to like a stable typed language. And again, if anyone here has done, say, a bit of Python and a bit of Java, whilst Python is a nicer language and it's easy to use, you know that without those like strong typings of Java, it just starts to feel like it crumbles as it gets bigger, right? Because nothing is type checked. Like you can just pass anything into any function, it just crashes at runtime and whatnot. So the introduction of like types to the language was really critical in a separate language. So just to be clear, JavaScript doesn't have types. There's a variation of it that does. And that is what helped to get picked up by industry, because suddenly industry were out there saying, oh, we're using, Java and .NET and all these other really strong languages, reliable, robust languages, right? And they looked at JavaScript and they said, oh, it's dirty, it's filthy, it crashes all the time. Python, JavaScript, they're prone to runtime errors because they're scripting languages. They're not real languages. TypeScript helped change that. So then we see a massive adoption of TypeScript within industries that actually care about it. For instance, like in my case, right? So like my full-time job is working within the financial services space. So essentially I oversee a financial services web app, right? Which is built in JavaScript, which is crazy. 10 years ago, you would have never seen an institution dealing with money building systems in JavaScript on the server. You would have been a bit silly to do that, right? So this was huge in bringing things institutionally, taking it out of like JavaScript's just this dinky thing in the web browser that lets you make, buttons change colors and broadening that base. Trent says, what sort of things did JavaScript do before Ajax? That's a good question. So JavaScript, like, I don't want to get into it, like, I can't explain it now if people haven't played around with it, but what I'd say is JavaScript is what makes web pages change. So if you're using a website such as Ed, and you click on this and it changes the thing, and you click on the heart. I hearted my own thing so that it's funny. None of you hearted this, and then I hearted it once, and then you all started hearting it, so I can unheart it now. Just needed the affectionate attention. Thank you very much. It's like when you click this or you click unpin or pin or watching, like JavaScript is what does all these dynamic things. It's what makes all the page change. Anytime you click something and the page changes, it's all done with JavaScript. What Ajax came along and did in the early 2000s was it allowed you to do that, but it also was able to collect new information from the server. So as an example, all this stuff that's happening here, we're changing this and changing that on Ed, that all just happens with JavaScript. I could turn off my internet right now on this computer and it would still work. But right now, if someone goes and posts a forum post, in fact, if anyone's sitting on Ed right now, I'd love it if you could just go and post just a really quick post that says hi or something, just one of you. Don't all do it. Because you'll see it will appear, right? So what JavaScript is doing, and where this like Ajax, which we will learn about later, has been so powerful, is that it not only allows you to kind of make things change on the page, which is great for giving like a real app-like feel, but it's also what allowed the web page to just quietly talk to the server. Because previously, the only way to get new information from a server, right, would be to completely refresh the page. I'd actually have to go and like hit the refresh button so that it could load the whole page again and get all the new information again, right? So that's to Trent's question about what sort of things did JavaScript do before Ajax. So you can see here, Richard's just posted hi, right, on the forum, and I didn't have to refresh that page. That's Ajax at play there, constantly talking to the server. It's, to think of it simply, it's probably just sending a request every 1 second, just being like, hey, is there anything new? Is there anything new? And the server's like, not yet, not yet. And it's like, oh, here's something. And it's like, great. So it grabs it back and then it updates the page. Now, all of these things, right, up till this point, this whole Ajax, CSS, Ajax, CSS, Node.js, TypeScript, all of these things were really about taking this web technology, which was kind of just about making a little page with some links, and making it more and more like a real application. Because again, if you think about being a kid, right, and most of you are still old enough to remember this, as a kid, you used to have lots of different apps. You would have you'd have an app for like we do this now, right? We have like text editors and web browsers and essentially like programs that you would download from the internet and store, right? And as you've gotten older, I am confident that you have regularly started to do more and more in the web browser that you would otherwise not do, right? Take Zoom as an example, right? Zoom is like an app, but like in 5 years, Zoom won't have a native app. It'll just be in the web browser because web browsers are getting better and better at it. So the whole transition, this explosion, comes from the fact that web browsers are becoming substantially better at emulating what a normal native application would be. And this is also true for mobile apps as well. We're seeing the same thing, but that's a whole other topic for later. So one of the things that really then took it even further was hybrid apps, Electron, Cordova, Capacitor, this whole array of these wrapper apps that what they did was they actually said, hey, you know what? Rather than build, most of you would have used Discord or Slack or Teams. One of those three applications. I'm sure many of you would have used Discord or Slack or Teams. 10 years ago, someone would have written that application in C++ or Java, right? Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari. Most of these native apps are written in like C++ or Java or something like that. Slack or Teams or Discord would have been written in that too. Why do you want native apps? Well, because native apps tend to be faster, right? They feel a little bit faster than web apps. So when someone goes along and says, okay, we built the Discord website, where you go and do stuff, www.discord.com, and they say, let's make a native app. People use this so often, they actually want an app on their laptop to use Discord. Rather than go and build one of these things from scratch, totally custom, someone said, why don't we just publish an app that is actually just a web browser in disguise? And this is where kind of the rise of these hybrid apps came along, where if you actually use Slack, Discord, or Teams natively, let me see if I can get Teams up without, having something personal there. I don't know. Yeah, so like I've got my Microsoft Teams up here, right, from UNSW. And like this looks like a native app. It's got the little thing in the bottom here. But what this actually is, and you just got to think of it, this is basically just a Google Chrome without any of the stuff of Google Chrome. So like if you imagine like this web browser, except I only just strip out the website part and I get rid of the top bar and stuff. That's basically what Microsoft Teams is. That's what Discord is. That's what Slack is. So it's actually a web browser. This is actually built in JavaScript. Even though it's like a native app, it's actually just a web browser hosting something inside. That's also why you probably noticed that Slack and Discord and Teams are very similar to their website counterparts, because they're quite literally the same application essentially. Now why this is important is because what this means now is people said, you know what, what's the point of building a website and then building a native app in two totally different languages, and then building a web server in another language? People are saying now, well, I'll just build the server in JavaScript and then I'll just build the website and then I'll just ship the website in a native app, and now we've saved a whole bunch of money. And this is why web is exploding, because all this stuff is compounding and compounding and compounding to basically say, if you want to build something that has a front end, large scale system, it's probably just the quickest, cheapest way to do it in JavaScript. And you don't lose a lot, and you're losing less and less the more time goes on. It's still slower, If anyone here is like, use I'm with Westpac at the moment, and if you've used the Westpac mobile app, it's actually a web browser in disguise. It's terrible. This is true for some of these apps. It's kind of clunky and whatever, and that's actually because even though web is exploding, it's still limited. There are still limitations to the performance and the capabilities of things like JavaScript. But it's always getting better, and it's just going to continue to, until eventually it will probably just continue to dominate for quite a while. So the last thing before I answer a couple of questions is, then there's been a boom in what we call declarative frameworks. And this is what the last 3 or 4 weeks of this course is about. You'll learn this between weeks 3 and 5 and 3, 4, 5, 6. Normal, classic, what we call vanilla JavaScript is kind of a little bit gross. It feels a little bit clunky. It's cool, but it just has this like messy feel to it that you'll understand what I mean if you haven't dealt with it yet. So big companies, in particular Google and who wrote React? Was it Facebook? Oh my god, I don't remember. I feel like there's another company out there I'm just completely glossing over in my head. I think it was Facebook. Can't remember. Anyway, so these companies, like these big tech companies, they just decided one day, they said, you know what, JavaScript sucks. So let's build our entire, let's build like a JavaScript 2.0 kind of thing, which essentially wraps JavaScript. And this has also accounted for the massive boom in building websites, because this has made things even easier and quicker and more reliable to build. Okay, so this is kind of what we talk about towards the end of the course. Are these like frameworks where it takes JavaScript and it just wraps it in something a little bit more powerful. And this is also what's just helped totally take things down an awesome path. So to summarize, in the vast majority of cases, your native web desktop applications, native mobile applications, and websites or web apps and even web servers are often nowadays built on a JavaScript stack. And that's why you should be excited, and that's why this course should excite you if you don't already know the stuff, is because you are essentially opting now to participate in essentially the biggest and most relevant part of our industry right now. And I do want to emphasize, this isn't the most important part of computer science. Computer science is a much broader area that touches on everything from algorithms to artificial intelligence to countless things. What I'm talking about is like, just your hardcore out of uni, getting a job in industry, not trying to change the world or do research or rediscover or discover new ideas, but actually just like go to work and build things for people, right? That's really why this is exciting. So, if you're a PhD, if you're a PhD, someone who wants to go do a PhD, this will be super interesting. It's probably not going to change your life, I guess. If you're trying to get some job in industry and you want the best chances possible, or you just want to go get some other job, but you just want to have this knowledge, then like it's in a good spot. So Tanit says, is trading web like TradingView, Yahoo Finance need Ajax? So essentially, I don't know why I typed your name in, but if you go to a website like this, basically, if you go to a website that is live updating things, and it only works when the internet is connected, it's using Ajax. So like, this page here, right? You see like this animation happening. If I turn my internet off, it's still going to work. But if I go to a page like this with some stock prices and it's like updating every minute and I turn my internet off and it stops working, it was using Ajax. Trent says, is that lack of extra features why hybrid apps still feel quicker than using the websites in something like Chrome? So that's a good question. Basically, the question that Trent's asking there is, like, why is it that, Teams here feels a little bit quicker on the desktop as opposed to the website, even though they're both literally the same thing? I actually don't have a great answer for that, but I just assume that it's to do with, like, browser pages are probably all competing for resources because it's like many pages all sharing the same. I don't know. I actually just don't know, because I know browsers have gotten a lot smarter now, and they actually sometimes. Have you ever noticed if you go like particularly Windows users, if you go to like Task Manager, you'll see that there's many instances of like Google Chrome. This probably is half of you I think might know this. In fact, I could just look it up, see what audience technology browse. I can see what this is. All the people that have accessed the course site. It's not personal data. It's like aggregated data. Like I don't know who any of you are. It just aggregates it. But yeah, you can see that like 70% of you use Chrome, and then I don't know what operating system you all use. It's probably here somewhere. But anyway, it's like if you use Chrome or you're on Windows and you've opened up like Task Manager and you see all these Chrome instances, that's actually because web browsers now are actually starting to quietly create many processes at the same time, many Google Chromes quietly, so that tabs aren't all trying to channel through the same process. But that's just a random fact that's unrelated to anything. So moving on, that's the background. Sorry that was like half an hour. Not too bad. Hopefully it was a little bit interesting. Hopefully at this point you're like G'd up and you're like, okay, 6080, I get it. It's cool. Web, it's cool. Great. Let's actually talk about the course, because this could have just been a little seminar about why web is relevant. So in terms of this course, we assume that you know Git, and we assume that you're familiar with HTTP and web browsers. And we assume that you have a high-level understanding of scripting languages. Otherwise, we assume no prior knowledge in the course, particularly about web development. And if you're an experienced web developer, sometimes people come into this course knowing a ton of stuff about web, and then they post in my experience that the course was too boring or slow. I'm not sure what to do. If you really know a lot about web, you might not take a lot away from this course, and it's either be chill for you, or you could go do something challenging. I don't really mind. Jimmy says that Google Chrome separates out processes for security isolation. Sounds cool. Interesting. If you aren't familiar with Git, this is particularly for postgrads. Then there's if you follow this link, there's actually a guide that's like getting set up with Git for the course. So if you're a postgrad or you're a transfer student, please go figure that out. It's something you will want to follow that guide. If you don't understand Git, you will want to follow that guide. If you don't understand HTTP or web browsers at a really basic level, like if I say to you, do you know what post and get requests are, and do you know what a 400 error is or a 200 success response? Like if that doesn't ring any bells, then you probably want to do a little bit of reading, but honestly, you can pick up a lot of that as you go. I wouldn't stress too much about that. Just be aware that you might have a few holes to fill in. But if you don't know Git, I would go and get comfortable with it. This is not a course that tests you on Git. It's just that the way we manage assignments is with Git. So, it's worth knowing. And then high-level language of scripting languages. If you know Python or Perl or Ruby or most things that aren't C or Java, you should be fine. In terms of learning outcomes, I don't need to parrot these to you, but you get the gist of it. It's like we want you to write JavaScript, we want you to write HTML, CSS, and make pages. We want you to use modern JavaScript frameworks. We want you to learn about Ajax and concurrency. We want you to have a basic knowledge of front-end security. That's actually extremely basic. This is not a security course. We're considering taking that out. And we want you to be aware of UI, UX design, product, and accessibility, right? We don't just want you to be coders, even though this is a coding course, right? We want you to be thinking about a page is only as good as like people can like it and use it. There are great courses, COMP3511, COMP4511, that are kind of like the opposite of 6080. They're all about UI, UX, accessibility design, and they do a little bit of coding. So if you are interested in the space and you haven't delved into those courses before, I don't know about them in terms of like whether they're good or bad. Like I'm not giving a value judgment. I'm more just like you should definitely go and check them out, because whether you want to do them or not, that's the only real place you could do them. And then in terms of this course, this is a new slide. I really just want to highlight a couple of really quick key things here for everyone. So first thing is, this is a challenging level 6 course. This is not like a walk in the park. There's always students who will tell me, they'll be like, oh, this course was too hard. And it's like, I understand that, like, it's not gonna be easy for everyone, right? So like if you're not up for a challenge, if you are not up for a challenge this term and you want to get like a distinction or high distinction, then I might just recommend that you choose an easier course, right? There's no like harm about it. There were times in my uni degree where I chose easy courses because I was like tired or dealing with health issues, and there were times where I chose hard courses because I was like, time to get punched in the face. I really just want to get hit this, you know, not literally, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's nice to get challenged and just completely just feel like you're struggling, because that's where you learn the most. But it can also be really challenging personally, particularly in these like COVID times, and you know, not everyone's doing their best these days. So keep that in mind. It's not like it's going to destroy you. You know, I wouldn't put it in CSE's top 3 or 4, you know, hardest courses by any stretch, but it's certainly not an easy course. Secondly, and this one is nearly more important, and what I think everyone should pay attention to, learning front end is going to be very different to a lot of things you've learned before. And in particular, I know for a fact that there are students in this course who did, for instance, C++ with me last year, or have done 2521 also with me, or who, it doesn't matter who it's with. This is a breadth topic. And what this means is that, you know, in a course like other language courses or whatever, you are posed with a very narrow, difficult problem that you just have to go and write a lot of code, and you feel like you know how to write the code. You just don't know what code, like you don't know if it's going to work, right? And what's different about front end, and this is kind of why, you know, it's not, I don't love front end. I like love it-ish. You know, it's not my absolute favorite thing in the world. Like I don't do a lot of it day to day at work. I do it, you know, partly, is because it's a breadth topic. It touches on so much stuff, and none of it is particularly extremely hard, right? Like you're not going to go away and be like, wow, I just did this big algorithm. I just solved this huge problem. A lot of front end is actually just like Googling things and figuring out like what to apply, because it's a really well-resourced area. Web is so like, there's so many tools out there. It's like literally crazy how fast you can build stuff in web. Like it's actually mind-blowing, and I hope you get that excitement that I get from it. But you're not going to feel like it's like do a bubble sort and you're just like, I know what I have to do, I just got to do it. You just got to sit down and code it with like a text editor up or like VS Code. You know, it's a lot of playing around, it's a lot of debugging, it's a lot of clicking in the UI. This will make it feel hard. This will make it feel harder or annoying or painful. And you know, some of you will think, oh, this is so fiddly. Why is it so fiddly? It's so stupid that it's fiddly. It shouldn't be. So it's the nature of what this is, right? And that's like the challenging part. And just go in with that in mind. It's just a different type of programming experience to what you're used to. Embrace it, because, you know, a good example is our first assignment, which we will talk about next week, is a lot of making pages look a certain way. That's what you do. That's what like my front-end developers do every day. they sit down with a user interface and they want to make it look a very certain way because we want it to look a certain way. And they play around with it and they're tweaking it. And something's not working. And when you click this button, this other thing keeps disappearing. And it's, it's like in C when you get seg faults. It's just a nature of the problem. And you just get better at debugging it quickly. The problem doesn't just disappear. Anyway, I've ranted about that enough. Moving on. This whole course is based off a content management system called Eccles. It's something I wrote. It's not an ego thing because it went down for 10 minutes tonight. I'd rather not have a responsibility for something like this because there's going to be bugs in it and other problems. But the purpose of writing this was that two things. One is that I was really excited over summer by the prospect of giving you all an actual application that you could clone and run yourself, particularly for weeks 7 through 10, where this is more relevant. You can go and get the source code here. If you go down to the bottom and you click source code, it takes you to a public GitHub page. I made all my work public, right? You can just go and clone it. I haven't put instructions here yet. It'll be up soon, but again, most of you won't touch this until week 7 anyway. So don't think about it too much. And if you know how to use it now, then the course is probably a bit easy for you. But you can go and run this locally, and the point of it was that I wanted to give you all something that you could use and feel and look at the source code and play around with yourself, something that you use every day, not some abstract app that you don't use. And I also wanted to create a CMS that actually suits our type of content, which I'll tell you this one thing and then we'll take a break because this is really important. Where 6080 differs from other courses and something I'm trying very hard to do, and I'm excited to kind of have you along for this journey, I guess, is that in this so you're all adults. I believe you know how to self-learn. I believe that you don't need hand-holding, you don't need participation marks, you don't need you don't need to be withheld solutions so that you come to class or anything like that. I want to treat you like adults, and many of you are adults, right? Particularly some older students here as well. And as part of that, we're trying to move away from this idea of having content in weeks. It's like week 1, week 2, week 3. We still actually teach it in that time, but there's nothing about Ajax that is about week 4. Ajax is just a topic of learning that afterwards you can go and learn more things, and beforehand you have to learn other things. And similarly with tutorials are just a series of questions, and some questions relate to some lectures and some questions relate to other lectures. And because, as I said before, 6080 is a breadth topic, it's a massive topic that's very wide, it's very hard to organize a course like this without it getting very confusing because there's so many little things going on. So the main motivation for a site like this was that we wanted to be able to give you your lectures. We'll talk more about the lectures after the break, but we wanted to be able to say here's all the lectures. Here's the lectures to watch in week 2. They're often very short, typically 4 hours a week. We wanted to be able to give them to you by week, but also allow you to go to all the browser lectures and actually see these are all the lectures relating to JavaScript in the browser. These are all the lectures relating to asynchronicity and concurrency in JavaScript. These are all the lectures relating to Ajax and React.js, right? So because this is how students think. A lot of you don't sit there and think, I really want to go watch 30 minutes into the week 2 lecture. You sit there and you think, I really want to go back and have a look at how to do the CSS layouts again. So you come back here, like this. Same for tutorials. Whilst we do have, these are our week 1 tutorials and our week 2 tutorials, we also know that a lot of you, when you're doing a topic such as, I really want to, do more with Node.js, you just want to say, where are the questions I can look at to help me learn more about Node.js, like this. So this was the second reason why the site was built. So the first reason was because I thought it'd be cool for all of you to have something that you can think, I could build this, and you will be able to, and to look at the source code, and I hope actually some of you will go and put in merge requests, pull requests, and add stuff to it. If you think it's crap, I'm very happy for people to put in things to improve it. This is not my baby and you have to stay away from it. As far as I'm concerned, this is kind of our little egg. I don't know why I said egg, but you get the point. But yeah, so that was point one, and point two is that I think it's a much better way to explore the course, because courses like this are like giant graphs. They're like giant collections of content where things relate to one another. And, you know, I want you to be able to go to a lecture like, what's an example? The events lecture, events in the browser, and be able to see what lecture you have to have watched beforehand and what lectures you can watch afterwards. Like that, you know, that's what I want to see, and see what tute questions, like what tute questions are related to this lecture, so you can go to this particular tute question and go look it up and provide the solutions. But anyway, we'll talk more about some of the tutes and lectures in some more detail after the break. I just wanted to introduce the course site, and just while I'm here, very quickly, we have the course outline, which you should all read. We have a link to the forum. We have the timetable, which has your lectures, tutorials, and help sessions on it. Come back to those. We have the course content, the assignments and exam. As you can see, I haven't actually the assignments, I got to post the assignment up here. The exam, which, you know, there's no information yet because the exam's at the end of the term. And then we also have installation, how to get set up in the course. To be honest, the first couple of weeks, you don't need anything more than a web browser and an editor. But in you know, kind of like weeks 3, 4, 5, you might want to start reading this page. And then we also have a resources page that I've made, which has resources about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, Git, if you want to teach yourself Git, and some stuff on networking. So if you aren't familiar with HTTP, I've got all this content here. You can go watch it anytime. And if you have other stuff you think is great, then literally you can just go to GitHub, sign up to GitHub if you don't have an account. Some of you might not be able to do this, so you can just email me. But you can just literally go and add to these pages. I don't mind. This is for everyone. So that's the crux of it. After the break, we'll have a talk about the team and the teaching resources. And as I said, I don't think we're going to go to 8 o'clock because there's only, you know, so many slides left, and they're all pretty quick. Nothing as long as these first ones. So let's take let's just do an 8-minute break till 7:10 Sydney time, and then we will keep going. So chat soon. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back from the break. So continuing on, we'll get through some of the last details and get through this thing. So in terms of the team at UNSW, we are made up predominantly of a team at UNSW, and we also have support through some pre-recorded lectures from Canva. So this is a UNSW run course with some material that Canva has been so generous to provide. Sorry. This is the UNSW team, a whole bunch of tutors. Some of them you might know, really all very smart, talented people. It's really exciting to have them on the team. You'll probably come across a bunch of them. These people will be doing your assignment marking, the help sessions, tutorials, all of that. And in terms of people at Canva, we have a handful of people who've helped put some of the pre-recorded lectures together. In particular, I need to give a big thanks, probably even more than any, to Tom, Nick, Anna, Peter. Peter's a lot of background stuff, but Tom, Nick, and Anna are probably 3 people you will see much more of than others when it comes to these pre-recorded lectures. So in this course, you'll pretty much see a lot of lectures recorded by me, Nick, Anna, Tom, and then handfuls of other people. Michael named Lee is another one who wasn't on this slide when it was given to me, but he helps a lot out with all the accessibility stuff. Sparky does some lectures as well, and I'm not sure if Christian, we have any of his. But anyway, point is lots of people, right? Very diverse, but still not very chaotic, which is great. In terms of the assessment structure of this course, it's very assignment heavy. The reason for this is because I think it's better to put pressure on you when you have 3 weeks to do something rather than 3 hours. This is the lowest the exam's ever been. It's been 25% for 3 terms. I've moved it down to 20%. That's really the whole story. It's 3 programming assignments that are due in weeks 4, 7, and 10. We'll talk more about this next week, but I will be releasing these assignments long before you need to start them. So assignment 1's already out now. Assignment 2 I'm hoping to get out next week or the week after, and assignment 3 before the mid break, right? So we want to get them out early. My only advice to you, and I'll keep reiterating this next week, is start assignment 2 in week 3. Assignment 1 will be due at the start of week 4, but you just don't need 3 weeks to do it. You might not be able to do some of it until later, but you don't, it's not going to be that hard to do for 3 weeks. So And I had 3 students, I crap you not, 3 students email me last term at the end of term, and all of them independently were like, hey, I know you said at the first lecture that I should start assignment 2 early, and I regret not listening to that, right? It's just that, assignment 2 and assignment 3 are really like the big difficult parts of the course. And in fact, the 2 of those assignments make up 65%, 2/3 of the course. The other third is the exam and the first assignment. So start assignment 2 in week 3. Don't stress about it now. I'm just telling you this week, so when I tell you next week, it's like, getting into your brain. So it's 3 programming assignments and a final exam. The final exam is also a practical exam. It's a 3-hour exam. Most students pass the course before the final exam, or they're close enough to passing that the final exam is not stressful. And that's the point. The final exam is not there to make you worried about whether you pass or not. It's not a double pass. It's not a hurdle. It's just there to help us further distinguish your talent, experience, and how well you've hit some of those learning outcomes. But we can talk about the exam later unless people have questions about it. So in terms of teaching stuff in this course, if you're half asleep or I don't know, looking at birds outside, pay attention for the next few minutes because it's pretty critical, and this will trip you up if you don't get it. The lectures in this course are made up of 2 hours a week of pre-recorded material and 2 hours a week of live lectures. That is Monday 6 to 8. Your timetable will have on it that we have a lecture on Wednesday. We are not using that time. We are just using the Monday lecture. This is reflected in the course timetable. There's only lectures on Monday. And if you actually go to the lecture content, all of the live and pre-recorded lectures are kind of combined here. So this week, these are all pre-recorded lectures. This one is a live lecture. I know it says 60 minutes. It's going to be a bit longer. That's okay. And next week, same thing. These first 2 are live lectures, and the following ones are pre-recorded lectures. Now, this actually is important because I've tried to structure it in such a way that if you don't want to think too much, you just follow these lectures just top down in a line, right? Like, I know I went on that big complex rant before, but it's like you can just follow these in a top down fashion, and you can watch the live lecture and then the rest of the lectures in the week. So in summary, this is how you do this course. You turn up on a Monday, or you can watch it later, doesn't matter. You watch the live lecture every week, and then after that you go and watch all of the following lectures before next week's live lecture. So you've come and watched this one tonight, or if you're watching the recording, you've probably found it from this button. Now you go and watch the rest of these lectures, and then next Monday you've watched all of those, and we keep going here. Now the lectures themselves, the live lectures, are going to be demo-based lectures, right? The intention is that if you don't go to the live lectures, you're not going to miss out on like too much fundamental learning. The live lectures are all about like course outlines, assignment, exam, as well as demoing stuff. Like, we want to do a lot of live demos during these time slots. You'll see here, week 2 is a demo, week 3, this lecture's in the wrong spot, that should be up there. It's like another demo, week 4 is a demo, week 5 is a demo, week 6 is it's all meant to be, let's tie concepts together and actually build stuff with it. Whereas all the pre-recorded lectures are like, let's go and learn this bit of stuff, this bit of stuff, this bit of stuff. So it's all about tying it together. Now, in terms of tutorials, this is the part that you really need to pay attention to because it's the one part of the course that has changed. And I've tried to do something new here. And again, I'm excited for you to be here with this. There are 12 time slots on your timetable. There are 2 tutorials on Tuesday 3 to 4. There are 2 at 4 to 5, 2 at 6 to 7, etc. Both of those are being taught by the same tutor at the same time. So essentially there's 11 shoots, but there's 11 shoots on the timetable, but only 6 actual classes because a bunch of those times double up. So if you have a shoot 3 to 4, then it's here 3 to 4, and you can just go watch it here. You just join this. This is a Zoom link, right? I think it works. No, I got to fix that link tonight. That's okay, but like that's a Zoom link. When you click on it, that will work. The important detail though here is that I've had this problem, and thanks for listening to me so much tonight. I've had this problem with online teaching where there's something I haven't liked, which is that courses go and spend a whole bunch of money getting tutors, like 11 tutors, to go and teach the same stuff every single lesson or week. So we pay these tutors to go and like teach the same material 11 times. And you're all level 6 students. I'm not going to pretend that you're all like tired and disengaged by this point of your degree, right? I've tried to not pretend that, but most of you just want to sit down and listen. Some of you want to engage. You're really awesome. Most people don't. So these tutes, it's like if we just assume that tutes are times where students just come in and the tutor just kind of explains stuff to them and students can type and ask questions. What we wanted to do was combine some of those tutes so that we can put on more help sessions. We have a record number of help sessions for a level 6 course this term. I don't think I think I've managed to put on more help sessions than any level 6 course has ever put on before on a per student basis. And they're all pre-scheduled for the entire term, right? Week 1, week 2, there are more help sessions and more tutors per help session as you approach assignment block. So that's why you see it kind of bulk up here and disappear again. So it's based around your assignments. This tells you how many tutors are there. So like if you go to this one and you see tons of tutors, tons of students, you're probably gonna have to wait a while. Whereas this one we have 5 tutors on at the same time. But we combine these tutorials to give you more help sessions, okay? So if you're like, why is this so confusing? It's actually because we took all that money that we are now not spending on having twice as many tutors say the same stuff to the other half of students, and we're just putting it in help sessions now. The second part here, though, is that I also still didn't like the idea of having 6 tutors say the same stuff every week. So what we've actually done is we've actually gone, and instead of having 1 hour of tutorial content a week, we've gone and created 3 whole hours of tutorial content every week. And what I mean by that is that these questions here, say week 1 tutorials, the time it takes to go through all of these questions, in theory, is about 6 hours. 3 hours, sorry, 3 hours. And because of that, what we've done is we've associated certain tutorial questions with certain streams of tutes, which I've just called sine, cos, and tan, because I was like, what's something that there's 3 of? It could have been anything. It could have been, I don't know. What's something that there's 3 of? Musketeers? I don't know. Something, right? And what we've done is we've said that what's actually going to happen here is that during Hayden and Clarence's tutorial tomorrow night, they're going to go through all of the tan questions. So me, tomorrow, and Clarence, one of us will be alternating. I'm going to be going through the icebreaker and the review of a page and image layout and many tags, right? So they're the questions that I'll be going through tomorrow in my tute. And that'll be the same for Jeannie, right? And different tutes go through different questions. And again, you might be thinking like, why is this so complicated? I don't think it's a little bit complicated, but the main reason for it is because now you as a student, you can go to any tute you want. And this is probably something I should have mentioned right at the start of this. Just because you're enrolled at a certain time doesn't mean you have to go to that tute. We don't care what tute you go to. Go to none of them. Go to all of them. Go to some of them. It's totally up to you. Go to the ones that have the questions you're interested in. Go to 2. Drop into part of one. It doesn't really matter. And then if you think, well, I'm only free at this time and I want to go and learn these other questions, the next thing is that we're going to be recording these tutes, and then afterwards we're going to be snipping them up and posting videos of that particular question up. So what that means is that come Thursday, Friday this week, I'm going to go and edit these videos, and if you come back to this tute question from week 1, we'll actually put a YouTube video here of the tutor going through that question. So you can go and revise these tute questions as much as you want without having to comb through recordings and stuff, just like lectures, okay? So I understand that it's like a little bit of information that you just had to absorb, but it's something very hopefully new and exciting that I'm trying that has given you more help sessions, given you a chance to watch recordings of tutes and look back at them, and have a lot more questions, because now rather than just 1 hour of content per week, we've got 3. So we're trying to give you more resources, because that was a big piece of feedback from the previous term, was how can we give students more help, more stuff that you can go and be guided for. Good question. So Jordan said, what does refining and extended mean? There's this column here, importance. You can honestly probably half ignore this column, but essentially what I've tried to do here is like, green means that I'm telling you should probably do this tute question. Blue is like saying you don't have to, but it's going to help really round out your knowledge. And then red is like you definitely don't have to do it. It's really just for like a bit of really extending yourself or doing something kind of on the side. So again, the point here was that, you know, you can look at these and say, oh, let's just do the green ones. Because again, to take it all back, a big premise of how this is trying to be approached is the idea of like giving you all as much information as you can to make choices yourself. It's that whole idea of like, we trust you to be smart. So this way it's like you can more easily look at a question and just think, I get CSS, I think I'm good, I'm going to leave that alone. And if you don't get something, you can go and background images, you can just go and watch it. So it's all about giving you information and access so that you can make your own choices and follow things how you want to. Trent has said a good question. I've just talked a lot about this point here. There's been a lot more to talk about tonight than I expected, so I really appreciate your patience. Even though it's not like we're running over, I just thought this would be quicker. All tutorials this time are online. I'm genuinely, sincerely sorry to a handful of students that I know really wanted to do this one in person, or they've just landed back in the country and they just want to get into class. I'm going to try really hard to like maybe do a lecture or a meetup on campus or something later in the term, or at some point, like that's on the cards. But the reason we went online, there's just a few reasons for this. One is that from a quick polling, again, a third of you are overseas. Those that are here, from what I can tell, most people in the country don't want to be in person. Lots do, but most don't. And then also, as term starts, and we see this every term, people who sign up in person kind of just, they tend to not want to go, right? So there's a small handful of people. Now, that in itself is not a reason not to do it, because, you know, we care about what people want to do. But when we look at the teaching staff and the tutors we get, who are all kind of, they're often very senior, just about to graduate tutors who themselves are doing a lot online. It was just very difficult to get enough tutors to actually teach in person. And that's not their fault. That's kind of the case we find with a lot of senior students who are tutors. And there was probably maybe one shoot we could do in person, but I felt very uncomfortable just like randomly picking, being like, that in-person shoot can be in person, but these other ones can be online, because it just feels very unfair and crazy. And then we have to start sending you out all this COVID safe, you know, it's just like, let's keep it really simple. And I'm sorry COVID sucks and all of this. And I mean it when I'm saying I'm sorry to people who want to be in person. I'll try and do something to make it up to you. But that's the background. Everything's online. There's nothing in this course that is on campus. If your tutorial says that you are online on the timetable, you can ignore that and you can just go and find your tutorial link here. But again, also, even though you have a tutorial time, you don't have to go. You can go to any tutorial. I would encourage you to actually every week go look, if you have flexibility with your time, go look at the questions that you want to learn about and go to that shoot. And if you just don't care that much, don't go to the shoot and just watch a couple of recordings later. It's okay. Like, very comfortable with how you approach it. And yeah, I feel, I'm really sad that we don't have the teaching staff to get you all in person. But as I said, I will try and organize like an impromptu little, I don't know, like hang out on some grass on the campus once or twice this term, just to say hi to everyone. And I want to give you all a chance to meet each other, right? Because it's not just about, what would you say? It's not just about being taught in person, because like being taught in person is like cool, but it's actually meeting each other. And in fact, if there are any students here who want to want to learn in person and you feel like you want to meet people, email me and help organize a little like informal like social event on campus. I can post it in Friday's notice, and you can get people there. So if you want to make a little event that's like all the 6080 students, you can all go and get lunch outside somewhere on campus next week or every Tuesday, then I'm happy to help facilitate that, right? Like, I want to help you where I can. So please reach out about that. I've already talked about help sessions. I don't think I need to say anything more, and I've already kind of talked about assignments. You can read that slide. I don't think I need to parrot it. And most of you get what help sessions are. If you want help throughout the course, please post on the forum. That shouldn't say WebCMS3. That's out of date. You can get to the Ed forum through the sidebar on the course site like that. Most of you have signed up or I've added you. Then there are help sessions you can go to, and then you can email CS6080, which just goes to me. please post on the forum first. If you can't get help, then go to help sessions, and then if you can't get help, then email me. In terms of getting set up for the course, we do have this installation stuff that I've linked you on the course site before. Though in terms of just like the stuff you'll use all of this. Most of it's just built in JavaScript. You can run on Linux, Windows, anything like that. I would probably recommend that you do this course locally, not on VLab. It's one of the few courses that you can do locally really, really easily. There's no crazy setup or confusing bashing your head against the wall. You can just go and do it. So go follow these setup instructions if you want to get set up. I've posted them there. But in terms of GitLab, which we've kind of glossed over a little bit, we are using GitLab in this course. Don't think I have it on the next slide. We are using GitLab to administer all of your assignments and to administer your exercises too. So I'll show you quickly on GitLab, every student here, I'm just going to pick Noah. Hi Noah, thanks for letting me click on this. Every student in the course has some repos that have been deployed to you at the moment, which is assignment 1, exercises, Git intro, which you don't have to do, that's just like an optional one there, and assignment 2. Assignment 3 will be deployed later, but basically the work you do is on Git. You've got a little Git repo for assignment 1, a little Git repo for assignment 2, and a Git repo for exercises. Exercises is all of the tute questions like this. They're all here. And in fact, if you go to the course website and you click on a tute question like that, and you click view activity on GitLab, it won't work for me because I don't have it, but it'll work for you. If you just follow this link, you only have to log in once. It will actually take you to the repo. In fact, if I go and copy like, a ZID here, then I don't know why that didn't work. I'll have to go and double check that's working. Probably having trouble with that one particular activity, I think. But most of the other activities should work. If I try this one quickly, hope this isn't embarrassing. You should get... Oh, what the hell? I think there's something just malformed about that URL. Let me go fix that as well. But you should be able to come here and see all the tute questions. So to the question... Tim's question about is the course code content just in one Git repo? Yes, it's all just in one Git repo, and I'm going to go sort out anyone who has GitLab access problems tonight, so that should be totally fine. This GitLab repo is yours. You all get a copy of this, so you can... Is it on a branch? Oh, right. All right, I'll go and sort that out, but this is all your repo. You can push to it. You don't have to check anything. All of you, there's 350 repos, one for each of you. You can go and work on this and whatever else. It's totally up to you. So that's all nice and fine. We'll cover that a bit more again when we talk about assignment 1 next week, because we're going to talk about assignment 1. Assignment 1 has been released. You can go and start it, just to be really clear. We're just going to do a brief of it next week and do a little bit of like a getting started stuff next week. You can go and start it. If you don't want to start it till next week, I think you'll be okay. Don't stress too much about it. I'm trying very hard not to make the start of the course too stressful. This button will be fixed up tonight. But in the meantime, if you just go to gitlab.cse, you'll see your repos right there. So it'll be totally easy to use. Course resources, I've already talked about those. There's the resources tab. You can go look at those anytime. Style guide, these are integrated onto the resources tab. I've put style guides in to like different slides. Like here's the React.js style guide. There is no style guide in this course like there is in first year. It's purely just like indicative. It's like if you want help. Like that. If you have feedback throughout the course, please feel free to leave it here. I would love it if you just emailed me, because I like to have conversations with students. Like if you're like, this is difficult, or this is confusing. Like if you're like, I find this thing confusing, I'd rather talk to you about it, because one thing that's really hard is when students leave feedback and I have follow-up questions and I don't know who to contact, so I just have to put it in the bin. Like a student's like, oh, the lectures page is really confusing. And I'm like, okay, who are you? And I don't know because it's anonymous. And I just can't do anything about it because I don't know what you mean. So, yeah, if you can just email me, I'd love feedback. If you think there's things we need to improve, just let me know. I want to make the course better for you. That's why I'm here. I am your servant. And getting along. As always, please understand that you're all bound by the rules of student conduct and be nice to each other. If you aren't nice to each other and respect each other, then, you know, I have to get angry, and I don't like doing that. So people in this course are usually really nice and supportive. I don't think this is ever a problem, but I just have to say it. You're all really nice people. That's evident just from the YouTube chat tonight, so that's super exciting as well. And that brings us to our last slide. So some questions here. Snowden says, can I have recordings if I only come to one of the tutorials? Everything is public to everyone in this course. So just make this really clear. On the timetable, you have a tutorial, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't think any of you have a tutorial. There are just times that people teach certain things, and you could go to all of them, none of them, look at videos, look at all of them. Like, it doesn't matter. It's totally open plan. Go do what you want. So that's all fine. Dimitri says, will there be any difference if the assignments are done by Windows? No, I use Windows. I use Windows and WSL. I would strongly recommend it. If you go to installation, you can see here, if you haven't installed WSL, this is how you install it. And it basically lets you run a Linux terminal on Windows. So like I'm on Windows right now, and I can go and, like, you know, do terminal things. I can go in here and I can make a file.c, and I can, you know, like, you can literally just go and run it as if it's like Linux, you know, GCC file. I just made a C program that does nothing. It's like Linux. It's like CSE. Done. So I would strongly recommend that you go and check that out. To the next questions about... Roger says, does GitLab work in the same way as GitHub? Yeah, pretty much. GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, they're all the same thing, just different user interfaces. If you've used one before, the other one will be relatively straightforward to figure out. Mitchell says, are all the assignments individual work? So, as per the course outline, I believe, assignment, I think it's in the course outline. Yeah. The third assignment is completed as a pair, though you are able to do it individually as well. We will talk about that later, not today, but the first two assignments are individual. The third assignment is optionally a pair. If you don't have any friends or pairs or whatever, I will help you find one. So don't feel lonely. Like, I would recommend you all work in pairs. It's great experience too. If you have a bad group member, I look after you. We'll talk about that later, but that's the landscape at the moment. Just to recap, the two things that aren't working, the one thing that isn't working with the course site right now is two things. One is that the tutorial question GitLab thing doesn't work. I'll go fix that literally, like, I'm going to finish this lecture and put my dinner in the oven and then fix it. And also the assignments page just isn't linking anywhere, but this was released like a day or two ago, and it's the start of term, so I'll have this link up tonight. But again, the actual assignment's available on GitLab. Whilst there are a few different tools we use, like Ed and GitLab and YouTube and Zoom, the point is that everything you can do via the course site. You don't need to feel like there's 10 tools to track. It's all like, if you just bookmark this site, you should be able to find everything you need. Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, what I was going to do right at the end of this lecture was just spend like literally 5 minutes giving you a super basic web page, not because we've learned the content, but just to give you a sense of what's coming up in the next few weeks. Even though like some of it won't make any sense, at least you can be like, oh, okay, I can see how these things fit together. So maybe I'll just do that. And if you have any if you have any questions for the end of the lecture, please post them now. I will answer them just after this little short demo, and then we can wrap up and give you your evenings back. If you are having issues with GitLab, if you are having issues with anything, access to the course site, post Something just fell over in the room. Please just post on the course site, on the forum, sorry. I will sort it out. Just post on the forum, post privately. That's the best way to sort things out. And I will get that sorted tonight for you. Yep. So really quickly, I've got a text editor up here, and I just want to show you that pretty much this term, the intention is that we are going to build web pages with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And as an example, just to give you a taste of all three of these things, this is HTML. It is something that helps us structure pages. I can go and make a table in HTML. And I can go and add rows to that table. Every tag is open and closed, right? It's like braces. And then inside each row of that table, I can go and make a cell. Like this. And there's, like, this is a table. Now you don't have to get stressed, what does the D mean and all that. The point is that I've now gone and made a little table in HTML. HTML are the building blocks of the internet. That's HTML. CSS are styling elements that are layered on top of HTML that tell HTML components what color to be, or like what size to be, or what layout to be. So for instance, if I want to have this header up here, maybe I'll make it an H2 for the second biggest header. And I can actually say, you know what? I'm going to set a margin to the left of 20 pixels for this header. That'll move it 20 pixels to the right because it's got to put something to the left. It's got to put 20 pixels of margin to the left of it. That's CSS. This is me writing CSS into my HTML. And I can go and do that all throughout the page, and I can go and do things like, say, I can also change the font family, which is like the font, to be Arial. And I can go and change the color, for instance, to be like a gray color. That's a hex code for color. That's all talked about later. Right? I can go and do that. That's CSS. It's how we make HTML look a certain way. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you an example of how JavaScript can make a page dynamic. And again, this is, just to be clear, this is all covered in the pre-records. This is not me teaching you. This is me giving you vision of it, so that when you see it later, you're like, ah, okay, I see how these all fit together. JavaScript is what can make a page dynamic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add an HTML button down here that has the text go inside of it. And when I click that button, I want something to happen. JavaScript's a very strange language, so if you haven't worked with it before, this will be a very strange way to write, but again, this is covered a lot in weeks 3 in particular. But what I can do is I can go and say, you know what? I would like to give that button a particular identifier, like a unique ID, like a variable name. I'll call that like go button. And I'm going to say that whenever go button is clicked, I would like to call a particular function that says move header. So I might make this page a bit smaller so the text editor is not so cramped. And I'm going to go and define myself a function called move header. And what this function is going to do is this function is simply going to give an alert on the page saying, hi, COMP6080 friends. And now when I open this web page, I said before JavaScript is about making websites dynamic. When I click go, oops. Oh, what have I done wrong? Let me check. This wasn't a... Oh, okay, it worked. I just didn't refresh the page. So when I click that, I get this little pop-up up here that says, hi, COMP6080 friends. But let's make it even more exciting. What I can actually do is I can go and say, well, I'm going to go and give an ID to the header. I'll call this header anything I want. And when someone clicks that button, I'm listening for that event when someone clicks it, and I call that function. But instead of just alerting, I'm actually going to alert the you know, what would you say, like the margin left property of the header. So I'm going to go and get that header element on the page. I'm going to go and get its left margin. which is like a property of it, and I'm going to go and try and print that out. And it says 20 pixels. So what I'm using now is I'm using JavaScript to actually read CSS properties that are baked onto the HTML. And then what I can do is, if I want to, I can go and try and say, you know what, I want that 20 pixels here as a number. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and Google like what is it, like JavaScript strip write text. I know you can't see my search, but I'm basically like looking for a something to like clean off. It's like JavaScript remove last two characters, right? I know my face is in the way, but I'm Googling and I'm looking, and there'll be something about the language here where it's like, oh, it's very Java and Python like, where it's like, oh, you can actually take a string and you can go and get a part of that string. So it's like, if this is my margin left string, which is that 20 pixels 20px, I can now say like margin left number is my margin left string minus substring from the beginning to the string's length minus 2, because I want to get all but the last 2 pixels. So this is me just trying to, and this is very similar to other code you've written, right? Like Python and stuff, it all follows a very similar programming paradigm. And now I'll try this out again. When I click go, I get my 20. But this is still a string in JavaScript. This is all stuff you're going to keep learning about. Again, this is just like a little bit of a demo to get you excited. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to convert that to an integer because it's currently a string. That won't make a difference here. But now what I would like to do is I would actually like to make that header go another 20 pixels across every time I click it. So what I've done now is when I click that button, I've made the header, I've detected what the header's margin is, but I'd like to make that margin more. So what I can do is I can actually say, go and get that header object on the page and go and set its margin left to be the current margin left plus another 20 pixels. Right? So now I'm kind of reading a property and like setting a new property. And now what we'll see is when we refresh the page and I click that, it moves across. And in fact, if I make these numbers smaller, like I start with like a 5 pixel margin, this is CSS up here, and now I come down here and I'm using JavaScript to set the CSS. I've now created a dynamic page where every time I click that button, the header moves across. Right? Tim says, is it weird that the margin property of CSS is margin dash left and of JavaScript it's margin capital L left? Yeah, it's a bit weird. There's a lot of weird things about the web. But anyway, again, this probably won't make a ton of sense. Like you'll probably have some questions here. These will all be answered in time. You don't need to know this today at all. In fact, if you understood this, you've finished assignment 1 basically, if you just spend the time, because this is all assignment. Like assignment 1's even easier than this, and most of assignment 1 doesn't even have any JavaScript. So go watch the lectures, but this is where we're trying to end up. Kind of between now and week 4, it's all really about just various expansions on this idea of HTML gives structure, CSS adds styles, and JavaScript helps make the page different. Tanit says, does it matter if you put the function move header below the event listener? Yes. But again, all those great questions we'll answer probably in week 3. Next week, we're actually just going to be doing HTML and CSS. The whole first week of this course, you don't even need to think about JavaScript. That's a week 2 thing. So between now and next week, don't even worry about it. You can if you want. That's also how the course is set up. Nothing stops you from going ahead. If you're really curious about stuff, just go and keep doing stuff. Like, it's totally up to you. You're all adults again. So anyway, I don't see that there are any last questions that have been asked since that demo. So we can wrap up. Just my very last call. If there are any last questions, ask them right now. Otherwise, we will wrap it up. But for those who've come tonight, big thank you for coming along. It's really nice to have company here on the live lectures. Hopefully it's been entertaining for you. All the live lectures are uploaded here. So it's like if you want to go back and watch the whole raw live lecture, then you can go back to the timetable. But I actually upload the recordings and put them on this page. So like this will have this video here later tonight, etc. And yeah, email me, message me anytime. Like, I'm very excited for the term. This is the first term that I've taught only one course for since mid-2020. lectured one course. So I'm really excited to give you a bit of focus and have a bit of fun. Yeah, just want you to have a lot of fun. So help me know what I have to do to make it more fun throughout the term. Other than that, have a great night. Take it easy. The first week is meant to be pretty easy. I know you've all just come back from summer that I'm sure has felt too short. For those who were really looking forward to in-person stuff, I'll do my best to try and organize things myself, but please email me. I'd love for you to help. I'd love for me to empower you to help organize some like impromptu COMP6080 social events on campus. I will support and encourage other people to go. If I'm free, I'll come too, though I don't live near campus and it's a bit of a struggle because I work full time. But, you know, I'll do my best to as well. And yeah, if I'm ever kind of around campus, I'll also post on the forum. I won't email you all about it because, like, I'm not going to freaking email you just because I'm around. That's a little bit self-obsessed. But I will post on the forum. Actually, I'll make a forum post about my movements on campus throughout the term. I might not be in campus much, like once, maybe twice. But I'll make a post that you can go and, like, click a watch on so that if I am coming, you can, you know, you'll get the email notification. Anyway, have a great evening. Chat to you next Monday. And go watch the pre-records. Go to the toots. See you then. Have a good evening.